Okay, so for this lesson, you're going to hear some buzzing in the background. That's the pop machine in the faculty room. For this lesson, we're looking at solving each system by substitution. So our learning target would be I can solve a system of equations by substitution. Okay, and so what you want to do is you want to find one of the variables by themselves, and then that way you know what that variable equals in terms of the other variable. In other words, the other variable is going to be in part of what that equals. Well, we look at this first one, we see y is equal to 6x minus 11. So if I know that's what y is equal to in one of the two equations, in order for the two equations to be the same, it has to equal the same thing in the other equation. Okay, so now this requires a little bit of remembering how to solve equations. So what I'm doing is I'm going to substitute. I'm going to get rid of the y in the second equation, and I'm going to replace it with 6x minus 11. So I have negative 2x minus 3. And now since negative 3 and y were being multiplied, now we multiply by what y is equal to, which is 6x minus 11. And we're going to solve for x. Okay, we do this the same way we always have. Distribute first, so the negative 2x hasn't been touched. Negative 3 times 6, and negative 3 times negative 11. That gives me negative 18x plus 33 equals negative 7. Okay, again, negative times positive is negative, negative times negative is positive. Okay, now I look for like terms. I have a negative 2x and a negative 18x. That gives me negative 20x plus 33 equals negative 7. Now I have to get rid of the number that's being added after the x. I get rid of that by subtracting 33. And when I do that, I have negative 20x because these zero out, and that's equal to negative 40. 33 plus 7 is 40. Again, when you have like signs, you keep the sign and combine. And then we simply divide by negative 20. So x is equal to positive 2. So now I know exactly what x is equal to. I still need to know the value of y. So I'm going to take that back up, and I'm going to substitute it into one of the two equations. The easiest one to substitute it in is the one you'd want to pick. So I'm picking this one. I could have substituted it into the other equation, but this one's real simple. All I have to do is multiply and then subtract. So I get y is equal to 6 times 2 minus 11. And since 6 times 2 is 12, we subtract 11, we get y equals 1. So my values are 2, 1, xy. And that's a solution. That's where these two lines will cross each other. Second equation, y is equal to x minus 1. Substitute that back in for y in the other equation. So I have 2x minus 3 times x minus 1 equals negative 1. 2x minus 3x, distribute, plus 3 equals negative 1. That's supposed to be a plus sign in between. Looks like a 4. Combine like terms. Positive 2 minus 3. That gives me negative 1x plus 3 equals negative 1. Take away 3 from both sides to get x all by itself. Those two zero out. Negative 1x is equal to negative 4. And then I divide by negative 1, which changes the sign. So x equals 4. Take that number, bring it up, and substitute it back into one of the two equations. Again, I would pick the easier of the two. All I have to do is take the value of x and subtract 1. And so I plug that in, substitute 4 in for x, and I get y is equal to 3. So my solution is 4, 3. Okay. So numbers 3 and 4 are just like that. I would like you to try those. So you can pause the video and give those a try. You're doing the same exact process as what I did in 1 and 2. So if you're confused at any point, just go back up and look at it. Okay, review what I did with 1 and 2, and try it with 3 and 4. I'm going to skip down to number 5. Number 5 is even easier. We already know the actual value of y. We already know it's -2. It says right here y is equal to -2. But I still need to find x, so I got to substitute that in. So I have 4x minus 3 times whatever y is, which is -2. That gives me 4x plus 6. -3 times -2 equals 18. Take away 6, take away 6. I get 4x equals 12. And then I divide by 4. And I get x equals 3. And that's my solution. You notice I don't have to plug that back in because I already knew what y was. The only time you have to plug it back in, plug the value of the first variable you solve for back in, is when you don't know what one of the two is, when it's still equal to something involving the other variable. Okay, let's take a look at number 7. I'd like you to do number 6 on your own. Number 7, I don't have y by itself in either equation. So I'm going to take this first equation and I'm going to rearrange it. If I look at that, it says that we have -4x plus y. Well, to get the y by itself, I can add 4x to both sides of the equation. So let me show you what that looks like. I want that y all by itself. So I'm going to add 4x here and here. Now you'll notice I didn't put that right underneath the 6, and that's because they're not like terms. So we can't actually add them together. But I'm going to put the x term first. Now I have it in the right form. I can take this now and substitute it in for y in the second equation. Now, what you want to remind yourself, if there's no number in front of the variable, the number is 1, so this is really -1 times y. So this one's a little bit more involved, if you will. And I'm going to write that up here because then I have the space. So I'm going to substitute in what y is actually equal to, which is 4x plus 6. And that whole thing is equal to 21. Why 21? Because that's what they said it was equal to. So now I do my distribution. I get -5x. -1 times 4, -1 times 6 gives me -4x minus 6 equals 21. Combine like terms. Negative and negative, they're both negative, so it's going to stay negative, and we add the two numbers. 5 and 4 is 9. And I add 6 to both sides. -9x is equal to 27. These zero out again. Divide by -9. And you get x equals -3. So now I know what x is. I'm going to pick one of the two equations to substitute that back into. And I'm going to do that over here. So I pick the first equation, -4 times -3, because it says -4 times x, plus y equals 6. Negative times negative is positive 12. And remember, even though they're written in the opposite order, usually we have the variable term first. What we're getting rid of is the constant. We want to get rid of that constant by subtracting so that it zeroes out, which means we have to subtract 12 here. And you can use your calculators for this, but we have 12 negatives and 6 positives. The negatives outweigh the positives by 6. So we have -6. And therefore my answer, my solution, is -3, negative 6. Okay. So that's the same pattern you'd use for 8, 9, 10. You've got to solve first. You've got to get one of the variables by themselves. For instance, in number 8, you can say that x is equal to positive 2y, because we're going to add 2y to both sides. And then you can substitute that x, substitute that back in for x, not y, because that's what x is equal to. To this point, we've been substituting back in for y, but excuse me, this one is substituting it back in for x. So you'd have an equation that looks like this: negative 7 times whatever we just said x was, 2y plus 11, take away 2y, equals negative 13. Use your distribution. Negative 14y minus 77, take away 2y, equals negative 13. Combine like terms. I get negative 16y minus 77 equals negative 13. Add 77 to both sides. Zeros out, that's a 7. We get negative 16y is equal to positive 64. Take 77 and subtract 13, you get 64. Divide by negative 16, and you get y equals negative 4. Take that, plug it back into one of the two original equations, not the adjusted one, the original equation. So it's easier, I think, to pick the second one, because we have x minus 2 times whatever y is, which we think is negative 4. So that's x plus 8 equals 11. Take away 8 from both sides, and you get x equals 3. So your solution is 3, negative 4. Okay. Go back to the first page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 problems for you left to do. Just do the first page. Okay? If you're not watching this video, too bad. You end up doing all of them. You should be watching this video, and that'll tell you you only have to do the first page. So you only have 5 more problems to do. I want you to practice that method on those 5 problems. Take a look at the second page. There's a lot of problems here. So let me